Today at ShopDAP.com, we're going to be swapping parts from our Mark 7 to our Mark 8. And I'm LARPing as a technician. We've had a lot of questions since the beginning of the Mark 8 about what parts would be interchangeable between the Mark 7 and the Mark 8. So today, we're going to put these cars up in the air and figure out what parts are easily interchangeable between the two. Now sometimes we get questions like, will these Mark 8 taillights fit in my Mark 7? And to that, I assume you were the kid who was taking the square block and putting it, you were eating glue. Starting with the Mark 8 rear control arm aero for race car and fuel mileage. Now the control arm on the Mark 7 is actually a different part number than the Mark 8, but would you look at that? It appears to fit without any clearance issues of any kind. There are no threads for these screws here, so you would need the nut certs, and then you'd have to get the hardware for up top, but there are holes in the appropriate places up top. So, rear control arms. Another thing people are often going to ask about is going to be the rear sway bar. The rear sway bar from the Mark 8 is different from the Mark 7 GTI, but it is the same as the Clubsport Mark 7 GTI because it's more aggressive. I know this because I did a comparison between all the part numbers on Mark 7s and Mark 8s on GTIs and Rs. We have two separate videos on that. If you're a nerd and you want to go super in depth and cover a lot of data in a short period of time, those are for you. We'll link to them in the description. What that means is the rear sway bar from the Mark 8 GTI would fit in a Mark 7 GTI, no problem, and it would give you a slight increase. Probably not as good as an aftermarket one, but still pretty good. The Mark 8 front control arm aero. And going on the Mark 7, you can see, whoops, it doesn't fit. So the holes kind of line up and the shape is kind of right, but this hole is way too big. This hole is not really in the right spot. This doesn't even sit flush against the control arm, so 2 thumbs down means no. Wah, wah, wah. You may notice that this Mark 8 is actually further up than this Mark 7, and that is because when we expanded our shop, Duncan, who works over there and runs the shop here, is a giant, a literal giant, and we needed to get taller lifts for his giant to fit under, so he didn't have to work like this all the time. Mark 8 Clubsport muffler that we installed. As you see, it has oval tips. People ask if this fits their car. Number one, we had to change the valance on this car, so it doesn't even fit Mark 8s without changing this valance, so 0 chance it's gonna fit Mark 7s, absolutely 0 chance. And there already are Clubsport mufflers for Mark 7s from Mark 7 Clubsport cars. So there's no goddamn reason you should do this. But for the people who ask that question, we're gonna measure it. Outer tip to outer tip, 48 and like something like 1/4 inches. Look at that, 42, 90.5 inches. So will it fit? It's about 6 inches too short. Not the first time I've been 6 inches too short, but.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
Let's get a sweet shot from underneath the cars and we can overlay them to compare. Moving up front, we have our steel oil pan. Ow. This will for sure fit Mark 7s, but I value my time way too much to drain the oil, remove the oil pan, remove that oil pan and drain that oil, swap them over just to show you that they fit, then swap them back. I'm not doing that. But it also is a better steel than the retrofit ones. It's also much more expensive. The oil level sensor's in the wrong spot over here as opposed to back here. It's much more expensive, but it will work if you would like. You might have to extend your oil level sensor wires or something to make it fit. The dog bone, the inserts here are the same. That's cool, so that's why there's aftermarket stuff available for that. We will have a video coming on these pretty soon. We're gonna be testing wheel hopping. Lastly, skid plates. You see this guy? This guy's damaged on ours because I hit a tire, if you recall. This is swappable from the Alltrack. I tested it already. We will have a video coming soon showing it, but an Alltrack skid plate does bolt up to this car fantastically. These brakes that we just upgraded from the Clubsport Mark 8 GTI, will they fit? on the Mark 7. And yes, they will fit on the Mark 7, except things like the TTS brakes, because they were fixed and not sliding calipers, apparently from what I've been told won't work. One of the guys from Newspeed actually mentioned that when they were working on their big brake kits, that the offset of the calipers are different, so their big brake kits need to be modified and wouldn't just bolt up to Mark 8s. Now I know you're wondering if this steering wheel will fit in the Mark 8. So we're about to find out. Clearly the steering wheel doesn't come off like that. If you want a video that shows you actually an in-depth version, we did one on our Alltrack, shows you how to take steering wheels off on Mark 7s. We'll link to it. Now, Mark 8, same deal. We're gonna put this in the Mark 7, see how she does. Looking at the back of the steering wheel here, this is the Mark 8 one. So you can see there are 3 clips at each corner here. There's one in here. Now, these are the barbs that they snap into, and they have these channels that snaps into. You have to turn the steering wheel to the appropriate position up top where you can see this, and then pry it down like that. So you can see as it will do, it will release it like that, and you're kind of pulling out to do that. Then you'll rotate the steering wheel around so that this will be there. You pry that one up and it will release the barb there. And then the same deal here, release it there, and it will just come out like that. That's a piece of cake when you're looking at the back of a steering wheel. From this side, it's a much more difficult time when you're on this side. So you're gonna need a mirror like this to be able to look. Steal your wife's makeup mirror, your girlfriend's makeup mirror. Maybe you like to put on makeup. I'm not here to judge. Use it like this, rotate it around, stick it in the back, pop it up like that. You're prying upwards like this. A Mark 8 steering wheel and a Mark 7, here we go. There's a line that lines up where it's straight, both on the steering wheel and on the steering shaft. So Nathan wanted to know if we were going to plug this in to see if the airbag went off, and I told him we sure as heck are. It does plug right in. Whatever this connector is for, there's no plug for it here. So whatever this is for won't work, for sure. Nathan's hoping for the sake of the content that this airbag blows up on right in my face.
No.
Okay. The buttons are lighting up. Okay, so the question is, does any of this work? Volume works. Does it slide? It does. The heated steering wheel can't possibly work. That's probably what that connector is, actually. So that connector most likely is heated steering wheel, the one that doesn't plug into anything, because it would have a separate circuit. That makes sense why the wires were thicker, because it has a much bigger current draw. That's why everything works. Is the one thing that wouldn't work would be that, which actually you could make work if you could run it power through your clock spring for it. So in theory, I actually think you might be able to use a Mark 8 clock spring to make that work on your car, hypothetically. I don't know if any of the cruise control stuff would actually work in real life. So I don't think any of these, okay, so the voice function worked. All of the functions work except for cruise control. So if you don't care about cruise control, which I don't know why you'd have a modern car and not care about it, but if you don't, get yourself a Mark 8 steering wheel. In theory, because that one worked there, I expect this one to work here. Fault codes for sure, because you're not gonna have a heating element, you're not gonna have all kinds of other stuff, blah, 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 blah. There we go. We'll push it all the way forward so you can see it. And I'm gonna go connect that battery. Okay, so if you hate the other buttons, you can put on get yourself a Mark 7 steering wheel. Volume works, Seek Next works. Heated steering wheel clearly won't work anymore. Adaptive cruise won't work anymore because it's gonna look for your touch sensitive steering, so it's not gonna know whether or not you're holding the steering wheel, so that won't work. Gauge stuff you can change, it looks like, by going back and forth here. So the right side, you can just click to the right. The left side, you can just click to the left. So a lot of this functionality still kind of works. It will not let me turn on cruise for obvious reasons. As I mentioned previously, if you want to strip away all the functionality of your brand new car, get yourself a Mark 7 steering wheel. It just like slaps the roof, buttons. The fun thing you have when you have to take seats out of cars is they're disgusting underneath. So you get the joy, if your car hasn't been recently detailed, of dealing with the disgustingness underneath your seat. A car I bought used. So this isn't my disgustingness, but It is now, because I got to deal with it. Now we're about to find about seats. Now we're going to find out if the seats fit. But first we got to take it out. So, and this is a 2-door. Yeah. Huh. I don't know what that is. Should we pull it out? It's a Happy Meal toy. Are you seeing the happiness on my face? Choo choo! We have a shop vac over there that if I need to, I'll go get, but some sort of Mark 8 seat coming out. It's not gonna be quite as gross because it's only got 6,000 miles on it. 4 doors, more chores. This is a harder seat to get out. Something to be aware of, this is a 4-door seat and this is a 2-door car. So I don't expect this to be properly situated in the car perfectly. Also, this is a power seat and that has manual seats. We'll find out if it will bolt up though. Let's see, airbag connector plugs in. The other connector does not plug in. Not a shocker because we don't have power seats. It does appear as though it would bolt in. You could put one of these seats in your car if you could find them affordably. Manual one if you had a manual seat car, or power one if you have a power seat car. These things also have air conditioning in them. You probably have to make a switch or something that goes to that portion of the wiring, and then you could have air conditioning seats. You could be that classy. Oh, it's just got wax, so it's slippery on the outside. Going in with the Mark 7 seat. Not sure why you would do this, but I'm probably gonna rip my steering wheel while I'm putting this in. Can you bolt this in? Sure can. Should you bolt this in? You sure shouldn't. It definitely does look worse. It's also a 130,000 mile, 39,000 mile seat. 139,000 mile seat in a 6,000 mile car. You're like, what happened to this car? It's been in the ocean. We're gonna be doing a test of a sound system. The sub in this car is in the trunk. The sub in that car, we're gonna swap-a-roo. We're gonna listen to it with a sweet, sweet song that's gonna pump that bass. Should we blow
it out before we can test it?
Turn it up all the way? Let's do it. All right. We are playing the fine classic song, Country Grammar. You're not going to get to enjoy this because YouTube will copyright strike us if we play it. So you'll just watch me listen with a much worse song over top of it. I'm not gonna lie, this Fender audio is pretty solid. It's pretty solid. Here we go. It's not as good. That sound system is significantly better. Just want to be clear here. 2022, the most expensive GTI you can buy. 2015, 140,000 miles. Unbelievable.
You mad?
This is our sub. This one is the Harman car don't make any bass. So let's see if we can swap it out. Maybe Harman car don't spend any money on making good products. I mean, this one looks like it's been through the rally cross in our Alltrack. The weight of this, oh my God. We have to weigh these. This is Harman Kardon Make Any Bass, 5.45 pounds. Fender, 6.75 pounds. As you can see, the housings are basically the same. All of the weight, when I hold this, all the weight is in the sub. So that is why this is significantly better, is because This doesn't have a trash heap of a sub that's in this pile of junk that came with this $41,000 car I bought. All right, so this is the Mark 8 connector that we removed from that car. And you can see this is the style that goes in here. Like that, click, click, click. I can't right now because it's unlatched. You gotta pop this latch here to open it up, and then you take this terminal tool, which we have on our site, of course, shop.dap.com. We'll link to it. You push it in like this, you wiggle the wires. They don't come out that easily because they're thick boys. So it's not plug and play, but it is as plug and play as it gets for something like this, for retrofit. Let's see how it sounds. Okay, it's better. Still doesn't hit nearly as hard as the Mark 7 sound system.
The bass is definitely way better.
It's definitely better than it was by a lot. But I think all of the mid speakers and everything in Mark 7s are actually better. Is this an improvement? Yes. When you're in the Mark 7, you actually feel the bass as if it's bass more so than just like a noise of bass. Like you actually feel it vibrate in Mark 7s. This is when the bass hits, it's just a noise.
If you want to improve your stereo without spending a ton of money, because otherwise you'd have to rip off the door panels and put new speakers in.
Yes, yeah. I don't know how it would compare with the accessory one, which is maybe better. Now onto our engine cover. This floppity guy is the Mark 8 engine cover. People always ragged on these engine covers because they look very generic and non-logoed, but now there's good reason to take them off because there's a recall on them for causing fires. So what will happen is they vibrate loose, and then it will sit on the turbo like so until it melts and creates a fire. This is a Mark 7 engine cover. It do not be causing fires. The hole for the oil hole is in the wrong spot, so that's a problem. That's an Ixnay on the engine cover A, and if you wanted to start a fire in your Mark 7, you're out of luck. Mark 7 engine cover on a Mark 8. The oil cap right here is touching, so it's possible that with some trimming of this, desperately wanted to put one of these on, you might be able to make it work. The heads are different though, at least different part numbers, even though like the PCV is the same, the coils are the same, but the heads are different, so the post location might actually be slightly different. If you dreamed of a Mark 7 engine cover, you're out of luck. You want to go more in depth in terms of parts for the engine bay, check out those videos I made. But a few key components. The turbo on Mark 7s, it does have the same flange where it bolts to the cylinder head, but the turbos are different. How much bigger this one is, we don't actually know. It would for sure be a waste of money to buy a brand new turbo out of one of these that probably costs $1,500 bucks, $2,000, when you could literally buy aftermarket options that cost the same amount of money, that have tuning options, that wouldn't require custom piping potentially, that won't bolt into your car because you need a custom downpipe, because the downpipe on Mark 7s is a different size than the downpipe on Mark 8s, where it actually meets the turbo. It's not worth it, is what I'm saying. You shouldn't do it. It makes no sense. I was gonna do it, even though it didn't make sense, but then they came out with all these Borg Warner turbos for all these cars that are just drop-in, and they're better than IS-38s or slightly better than IS-38s. So get an IS-38 or get one of those. So we've had a lot of people ask if this pump, because it has a much higher pressure output, would be retrofittable into a Mark 7. Based on the bolt pattern here, it does look like it would bolt up. The main issue is this connector is different. This fuel fitting is completely different. It requires special tools to remove them. The bottom one actually looks like it probably is the same, and the angle it comes out is probably the same as well. So the question is, even if it does bolt up to your car, number one, will it cause any problems mechanically because of the offset's wrong or blah, 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 whatever? Like the lift is different on this cam versus the other, so maybe it won't lift as high. I have no idea. No clue. By the way, our shop right here is a place you might have to bring your car if you install this on your Mark 7, and maybe the Mark 7 cam has too much lift for that fuel pump, and it literally explodes the fuel pump and destroys your camshaft at the same time, and you need a new one. We're glad to help you. So there we have it. Mark 7, Mark 8 parts, a bunch of them swap. Most of them don't really work perfectly, but that's what you wanted to know. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.